Glendale Hospital. This hospital used to function as a sanatorium for tuberculosis, but it has since been abandoned for the past 30 years. During the Great Depression in the 1930s, there was a tuberculosis outbreak in Washington, D.C. The hospitals were overflowing in D.C., so they had to send patients out to hospitals located in Maryland and Virginia. There were 23 buildings housing both adults and children. Glendale Hospital was built specifically for the treatment of tuberculosis. People who had the illness were often tossed aside by their families since it was seen as a great shame. As antibiotics began to combat the disease, the hospital was used as a nursing home. Glendale Hospital shut down in 1982 due to the high levels of asbestos as well as financial decline. When the hospital closed, the patients were just put out on the street with nowhere to go. Some patients continued to live in the abandoned hospital since they had no place to call home. People who have visited the abandoned facility have reported hearing voices, whispers, banging, and footsteps, while some say that they heard their own name being called. Visitors have reported intense feelings of anxiety inside the building and a general negative energy that one person has described as evil. The morgue in particular seems to be a hot spot for paranormal activity, with visitors claiming to hear strange noises and see ghostly apparitions. Smoke has been seen coming from the crematorium, accompanied by the smell of burning flesh. People have reported seeing the apparitions of patients roaming the second floor and have reported seeing packs of ghost dogs. Point Lookout Park. Point Lookout, which is now a public park in St. Mary's County, was used to house the military during the Civil War era. There was a hospital built here called Hammond General Hospital, as well as a prison camp used for prisoners of war known as Camp Hoffman. Over 50,000 men were kept as prisoners, leading to overcrowding, and anywhere from 3,000 to 8,000 men had died here as a result of freezing to death, as well as other complications due to filth and contamination. A lighthouse was built in 1830 and was actively used for over 100 years. The lighthouse seems to be the source of a lot of the paranormal experiences. A parapsychologist and his team investigated the lighthouse and reportedly captured 24 different voices on a recorder. One of the original lighthouse keeper's wife, Ann Davis, has been seen standing at the top of the stairs wearing a white blouse and a blue skirt. The investigators found cold spots in the lighthouse and a rotten smell coming from one of the rooms. Over the years, people have found ghostly apparitions appearing in the photographs taken. One ranger who managed Point Lookout tells his experience of seeing a woman walking in the grass, looking at the ground. The ranger asked if she needs any help, but she said that she did not need help and that she lived nearby. She then asked him a strange question, asking him if he knew where the gravestones that used to be there were. The ranger felt strange and walked away from the woman, and when he returned, she was gone. His car was the only vehicle nearby, and there was no one else around. The ranger spoke to a co-worker about the incident and asked if there was a graveyard near the river, to which the ranger responded yes. There was a graveyard for a family that had since been lost. Someone stole the headstone for Elizabeth Taylor, one of the ones buried there. Years later, the ranger returned with metal rods searching for more gravestones and found them buried underground. He believes that the woman he encountered was Elizabeth, looking for her family's graves. Several visitors and rangers have reported a sighting of a man running by the woods and disappearing. The location he has been seen at was near the prison, so people theorize that he may have been one of the Confederate soldiers trying to escape. A former park manager also reported hearing voices outside. One of the women who moved into the lighthouse have heard the calls of fishermen calling for help, but no one was there. The sound of a woman singing from the top of the stairs have been reported, as well as the sound of footsteps and sounds of laughter. There are reports of apparitions appearing in the lighthouse. One woman saw two transparent figures that she could not decipher if they were male or female in the basement. One of the ranger's dog would bark seemingly at nothing and watch the road carefully as if he were watching people walk by, but the ranger said no one was there. People described the overall feeling of darkness and despair, most likely connected to the victims of the prison camp. The Witch's Grave. Somewhere near a baseball field, there is a slanted tree located in the woods where legend says that a woman accused of being a witch was buried alive. According to the legend, the witch had escaped from her grave and killed all of the people who were a part of her execution. It is believed that the bodies of the witches' victims can be seen hanging from the trees on Halloween night. One visitor, with the intention of contacting the witch, reported that his friend was pulled towards the grave and had scratch marks on his back. He also reported that he and his friends were followed, resulting in hearing strange noises and strange apparitions appearing in photographs. According to the legend, there were 3 witches buried in this location. 2 were hung, while 1 was buried. It has been said that the witches haunt the area and will haunt anyone who tries to summon them. Edwards Ferry. Edwards Ferry was used as a safe place to cross the Potomac River. In the early 1800s, immigrants were working to dig the canal. Poor hygiene was an issue here, and there was a threat of cholera. This led to thousands of people being buried along the canal in unmarked graves. During the Civil War, bodies of soldiers would float along the canal all the way to Washington, D.C. Visitors report hearing screams and strange noises. Reportedly, mules have reacted negatively when traveling through the area and seem to be quick to leave. This area has been said to be haunted by the ghost of drowned soldiers. Pocomoke State Forest. Pocomoke State Forest is said to be the most haunted forest in Maryland. The forest stretches over its 18,000 acres of woodlands, mainly consisting of swampy forest. Pocomoke means Black River, and its dark waters have claimed the lives of many. People have fallen into the river and disappeared, their bodies never to be found. Many urban legends have come from this place, and they are rumored to be true. One of the urban legends is the Hook Man, who was an inmate with a hook for a hand, and he killed the people who disturbed the forest. People report sightings of the 6-foot-tall man with the hook for a hand. Along with the urban legends, the tales of hauntings and paranormal experiences are plentiful. People have reported hearing the sound of a woman screaming and a baby crying. Ghosts of murderers are said to roam the forest. Ghostly apparitions appeared in photographs. People reported the feeling of being touched, and people have seen both shadow people and faceless human-like entities, and one of the tour guides have reported hearing rustling in the trees and pebbles being thrown at her and her group. According to local legends, there is a church with the Bible that can't be removed from the building. People who try to pick up the Bible find it to be extremely heavy, and it becomes heavier the closer they move to the door until they can't carry it anymore. People have reported seeing the apparitions of a boy and a man holding hands and walking along the swamp, only to realize they were floating above the water and no one was truly there. Some believe that there are elemental spirits or fairies that haunt the forest. Chestnut Lodge. This former summer resort was turned into a psychiatric treatment center. The resort was opened in 1889 and was later converted in 1908 to become the hospital. The facility remained active and open until 2001. This hospital has a dark history involving patients being experimented on. It has been rumored to be a place where part of the CIA's MK-Ultra mind control experiments took place. Many of the patients here were schizophrenic, and the facility practiced new treatments, including electroshock therapy. After the doors closed, people nearby have claimed to have heard screams coming from the empty building at night. The Bale Dawson House. A restored home turned into a museum is a home to apparitions believed to be either the original owner's family or the family's slaves. This house was built in 1815 for Upton Bale and his wife and children. They were an upper-class white family who owned slaves who also had quarters to live in at the property. This house is located in Montgomery County in a rural area. Bale wanted a house that reflected his high status and wealth. The house was inhabited by the family until 1965 when the city of Rockwell purchased the property and turned the home into a headquarters for History of Montgomery. Only one building of the original home is left, but the architectural design has been preserved and restored. The paranormal presence have been described as friendly interactions. Strange noises could be heard from the upstairs level, which happens to be where the slaves' quarters were located above the kitchen. The burglar alarms would often go off without any sign of break-in. One of the volunteers who worked here said she saw a black man in 18th century style clothing laying on the floor. There is also a legend from this home that features a little girl's dollhouse being haunted. Supposedly, this dollhouse was given to a little girl as a gift, but she died an untimely death. Every year, the dollhouse is taken out to be on display in memory of the little girl. People report seeing the furniture of the dollhouse being moved on its own and eventually sold the furniture. After selling the furniture, it is said to have sounds of wailing coming from the empty dollhouse. The Hampton House. The Hampton House is a mansion built in 1772, but it wasn't completed until 1790. The house was being built by Charles Ridgely, who was a successful businessman that was creating his dream home. The Ridgely family owned the home until 1948, when the property was bought and given to the government. The house has been named a National Historical Site due to its architectural design and vast land stretching across 60 acres. According to employees, one of the spirits in the house does not approve of exhibitions in the Great Hall. Reportedly, the display racks have been torn down in the middle of the night. Descendants of the original Ridgely's family lived in the house and reported seeing apparitions of who they believed to be Mr. Ridgely's wife, who had 11 children, but she suffered from chronic mental illness and she did not want to be involved with her children. The woman described hearing a faint tapping sound and saw a frail-looking woman who she invited to sit down, only for the frail woman to disappear in front of her eyes. Workers have reported seeing the saddles and harnesses swinging on the pegs as if they were being pushed from side to side. Chains could be heard rattling. It is believed that it is the spirit of the original carpenter, who got drunk following his payment for his work and drowned in a creek. Visitors have found shadowy figures appear in photographs and faces appearing in windows. Voices were also reported to have been heard. One of the groups who were on a tour said that the bells simultaneously began to ring, which were used by the butler to summon the servants, but the bells were all disconnected.